on YouTube? D-Star back again with another tutorial, and today we're going to talk about 5 things I think you need to know about Nexus 2. And I'm going to preface this by saying I know Nexus 2 gets a lot of crap. If you go on some of these forums or you see the comments, everybody's like, Nexus 2 is a preset player, it sucks, don't get it. And hey, that's totally true. So I'm going to let you know that obviously I do a lot of my sound design in Serum. But I do use Nexus 2. One of my favorite things about Nexus 2 is the immediacy. If you're in the studio with somebody, especially like a vocalist or something, and you need to lay down some chords and you need to set a vibe, Nexus 2, you reach for it, you open it up, and there's a lot of dance-ready, modern sounds that, to be quite honest, I'm just never finding in any other plugin. I open up Atmosphere, Contact, all the other ones. There's so many good sounds, but they're never like out of the gate processed, ready to go to where if I just play something, it's like, yep, there it is. And that's cool. I like that. I like to tweak. That's why we're here. I like to play around. I like to mix and I like to change things. And I like to do things like that and sound design and all that 100%. But one thing I noticed when I'm making music is there's got to be a separation of the creative side where you have that idea in your head and you've got to put it down on paper. And then there's the second side, which is getting that idea to sound 100%. And that usually involves sound design, tweaking, mixing, plugins, layering, you name it. And if you don't try to mix those two sides, in my personal experience, if I spend an hour when I'm motivated and I have an idea and I spend an hour trying to get the chords to sound right, and I look at myself and I'm like, damn, I've been working on this for an hour and all I have is 4 chords, that's not really going to hype me up to finish the song that night. So I love reaching for Nexus in those situations. It is essentially a fancy preset player. There's no doubt about it. And it's made by these lovely guys over at reFX who are affiliated with Vengeance in one way or another. And Vengeance, I think, realized that, hey, everybody's stealing our sample CDs. Nobody's paying for our stuff. Let's figure out a system that involves this cute little iLok, little Synchrosoft key, and let's sell everybody our preset packs on this on this preset player, and we'll be able to avoid that problem with our business. And I think they did a great job. Nexus 2 is key in the arsenal of dance music producers, and I know a lot of the biggest producers in the world definitely reach for this at times. So no shame in that. But today, we're going to talk about 5 ways to improve your Nexus 2 game and step up your sound design or whatever you want to call it in Nexus 2 so you don't feel like you're just using a preset player as much, and some ways to find some inspiration, stuff like that. So let's start with tip number 1. Actually, I'm going to show you a little trick before we even get into the real 5 tricks, and I'm not going to charge you guys for this one. But first thing comes up is the saw. I love doing this. Right-click, global off. And then every preset you switch to, you're not going to have the reverb and delay because these things are just doused in it. Okay, now let's start the video. Tip number 1. Okay, so you've probably gone through here before and you've seen some of these sequences and you've listened to them. These are god-awful. See, look at all this crap. Let's just play one of these. Share. And you've heard that and you're like, what in the hell am I going to do with that? Well, go into the Mix tab and hit Layer, and this is kind of buried back in here, and you can shut off all the layers of each sound. This is really useful for these sounds. So let's break it down, shut off the art, and we get that cool little percussive sound. Number 2, that bass line, and then number 3, unfortunately that global delay doesn't seem to work in these anymore. And there's a drum kit. This becomes a drum kit. And I feel like these may be tuned. There is an oscilloscope right here, somewhere in here. Oh, there's a nice picture of Steve Aoki. Yeah, I would use the one in Ableton. But either way, you could probably tune the drum. It seems tuned. And there's all sorts of drum sounds. Super useful. And each sequence has a different set. So there's tons of sounds back here, and you can sample those and whatever. Actually, what I have done before is I've actually disabled. I've gone in here and I found one with just a hi-hat loop, and I sampled it and used it, at other times. I don't remember. So now you get this cool little sound. This is super useful for layering. Let's go in one of these future house packs. Let's find one of those like super typical like stack. Cool. And here you can get in the layers now, and you can kind of shut stuff. It's not as delayered as I thought. And there's the pitch right here. That's actually pretty cool on its own. And there's low end layers. So you can go through here and you can find these random sounds and you can just see. Ooh, that's pretty nasty. See that wasn't on before. And then what's down here? It's like a low end layer. So you can go through here and you can find some really cool layers of sounds that you've never heard before, and you can kind of piece together your own thing, which I tend to do a lot when I'm using Nexus. So I'll go in one of these sounds and I'll find like maybe a piece that like aligns the tone that I don't know, it's just something that I think is interesting. Strip it back and then maybe layer in my own sounds to kind of compensate for those missing layers. And then I've kind of been left with my own sound, which doesn't sound like Nexus, but still has that fatness to it. If you go through the supersaws and stuff, you'll see that they have like 4 supersaws stacked, which is why it creates such a big sound. So it kind of beats out Serum and like Silent in the sense that like we're limited to 4 oscillators or 2 if you're using Serum. And in here, there's 64 oscillators, and they're probably all samples off of hardware that's already kind of detuned and set in its own way. So I don't know if these oscillators are real oscillators or if they're like samples. So maybe it's 64 samples, but regardless. That's where Nexus is winning right away, is that sound, that bass, and we just heard in here, that's not one oscillator, right? Because, it's already generated through FM. You can hear there's some sort of filter action in some of the sounds. Like, it's a sample player, yes, for sure. But if you go in there and you can pick apart the samples, you can, A, hear how they did it a little bit and understand for yourself, hey, this is how it makes a bigger sound. 2, this is awesome, that they created this sound. But I want to take out this bass layer and maybe these 2 mid-range layers, just keep that high layer and then go in on my own. Whatever. I know you guys are going to find something useful to do with it. Yeah, there it is. So also, if you go to the sequences, obviously you can finally use those stupid sequences that you keep seeing in there. You're like, why the hell did they put these in here? It's like someone's just going to press one key for their drop. I mean, I wouldn't put it past somebody out there, but I'm sure someone's done it. But you get the idea. So hopefully that helps you guys. And yeah, let's move on to tip number 2. So let's talk about the arpeggiator. I'm going to pick a sound that I think is pretty cool. Let's see what I got in here. I actually like that percussive sound. Let's go in there and grab it. The Hollywood, or you can just grab a bass sound, actually. I don't want to dig too long for presets. Let's do this. Cool. All right, cool. Arpeggiator. So this thing's pretty straightforward at first sight. You turn it on here, and you can do up, down, alternate, order, whatever that does. I must have to do with the keys you're putting in, obviously. Alright, cool, so it's in the order you played it in, that makes sense. And then random, and then there's poly. So a pretty straightforward arpeggiator in that sense. 2 octaves, 4 octaves, speed, obviously speed of the arpeggiator. The gate gates the notes. And then the length of the notes, or the length of the arpeggiator as well. So one cool thing that you can do right off the bat is, I'm pretty sure this is the velocity, which I don't quite reach for too often. You're doing that by holding Alt or Option if you're a Mac user like myself, and you can go in here and see what it does. Yeah, it's kind of a velocity slash, yep, it's velocity, so that's that. So you can kind of humanize it a little bit right off the bat, which would be kind of cool if you're doing 16ths and maybe you have a plucky sound. Whatever, maybe even a hi-hat. You can do a quick hi-hat. Oh shit, didn't mean to click that. I don't know why it did that. Then you can pull here, you grab this little space, this blank space. Well, you can do octaves by doing this, I'll tell you that right now. But you can grab this space here and you can do notes. So you can kind of draw in your own little in-between, which is pretty cool. And one of my favorite things to do is to combine all this I just showed you and then go into the library and grab, and I don't do this as much as I used to, but when I was starting out and I needed inspiration and I didn't really know what I was doing, I found this arpeggiator really useful. There is one thing I don't like about it, and that's the last thing I'm going to show you. But yeah. So you can go in here and you can go. You of draw your own patterns. And now for that last thing I don't really care for, you can't really get the MIDI out of here because it's all inside one plugin. So there's no easy way to just output the MIDI, whereas if you're using some of the better arpeggiators out there, you can just record the MIDI out, which is super helpful. I'm not aware of a way to do that, and I don't think it's possible in here. So that kind of sucks. So moving on to number 3, tip number 3, and we're going to talk about LFOs. So obviously, this is not the most programmable synth in the world. Let's shut this off. Let's shut this off here. And let's go into this section. So there's a little bit of a matrix, and there's an LFO section right here. You can actually do LFOs, and you can program stuff. So let's actually start a new instance of Nexus. And let's open up here, and you can go and you can pick LFO 1, and you can assign the LFO to anything on the actually let's do a cooler sound than just this. Let's shut this off again, global off, and let's go into Future House, and let's grab something we would play some chords with. Maybe piano layer? Nah. See this preset thing, you get sucked in here and just looking for the sound. And that's what I noticed too, a lot of people just get sucked in here. If they can't find it in here, they get discouraged and they don't know how to make it themselves, and that's what happens when you use Nexus 2 all the time. It's kind of a crutch, but cool. Yeah, I like these. I'm a sucker for Rhodes sounds. So anyways, all right, so you can see the mod wheel is a huge key, and I don't have my keyboard plugin, so we can't test that. We're going to go in here, we're going to change LFO 1, and we're going to shut this thing off right here, and then we're going to go to LFO 1. And so there's free, which is, I would imagine, it's just a free non-synced LFO. There's synced, which is synced to the host's tempo, of course, so pretty straightforward. And then there's sync trigger, which is what we're going to use, and every time I press the key, it'll trigger the LFO. Let's do quarter note, and then let's keep it on sine. There's sine, triangle, saw, ramp, which is a ramp up, kind of the opposite of a saw, which is a ramp down. In this case, there's a square, and then there's chaos, which is random crap. Let's do the sine. Jeez, gotta shut off my notifications next time. And let's go here, and let's do the front, and let's do the filter envelope, and then let's draw this. See, this is what I don't like about Nexus. The filter cutoff doesn't work. Whatever they did with this preset, they didn't wire up the filter. I hate that. It drives me crazy that Nexus does that. Sometimes it's kind of a farce, but there's a solution, and that is the master filter, which is right here. I just need to find out how to see. There it is, master cutoff, I would imagine. That's it. And there we go. Let's go faster. Let's go eighth. And now we got a cool sound. Add a little resonance. Sick, right? All off of that little LFO, and you can change how much. Maybe raise it up a little. So sick, right? So simple, and it's kind of a way you can maybe change up some of the sounds, whatever. And of course, you're not limited to doing the cutoffs. There's 64 oscillators in here. I've never really messed with this stuff. All the layers, you can change the layers that you see in the mix tab, and you can change each thing, maybe even panning. Let's try it, see what happens. Let's do it really. Oh yeah, there it is. So there's tons of stuff you can mess with in here. You can do the effects in the mix tab, which by the way are actually pretty fire. Some of them are not bad, and that the reverb is actually pretty cool in the mix tab. I don't love this one, but it sounds good. I just hear it on every record, so it drives me crazy. But yeah, that's how you use the LFOs. Let's move on to tip number 4. Tip number 4 is actually the simplest one. If you click the lock tab here, you can lock in all your changes. So let's go back to that filter the first filter thing. And then we're going to right click this, we're going to click locked. And those settings are going to stay, so no matter what we pick, let's say we want the other roads, it's going to keep those settings. This is super useful, especially for the ARP. If you go in here and you change the ARP and you want to use it on a different setting, let's grab this. And you want it to stay, you click locked up here. Also portamento, super useful. All of it, you can lock every setting and then you can switch it to different things. And so on and so forth. That's the easiest one. Last and final tip, tip number 5, and that's using the filter here. Let's start a new instance of Nexus. I almost said Serum. It shows you how much I use Nexus compared to Serum. Back here, global off, of course. And this is super simple, but it can take a sound to the next level or even change it. It's just using these envelopes here. By doing that, you set the envelope for the filter, which is controlled here. So you have this. And then you can also change it. And you can also. And then you can add release and maybe. Let's try it. And you get the idea. So you can use the filters really creatively. Unfortunately, as you saw in the last preset, which kind of surprised me, the filters are not always active, which is weird. There's some strange things. There's some strange things with the filters and Nexus in general that's kind of infuriating. Sometimes there's portamento installed in the plugins and you can't take them off for some reason. Just little finicky stuff. I'd imagine when you design 80 presets, they probably do like 10 of these a day, and it's probably like their 9 to 5, and everybody's kind of like, you know, they kind of miss a couple little things here and there. So kind of sucks. Sometimes you can't change things. You can't get the sound you're looking for. Regardless, it is awesome to know how to program the filters and stuff like that. So I hope you guys learned something from this tutorial. If you did, please hit like and subscribe. I love you guys. And by the way, I'm sorry I have not gotten to any videos in the last 5 days. I try to, release more regularly, but I had a DJ the last 2 nights and I was actually traveling to see my family, so I didn't have time to sit down. Things have been super busy for me, and yeah, I apologize for that. But hey, the content train is not going to stop, so don't you guys worry. And I really appreciate all the really nice comments you guys left me. While I was traveling, my phone was popping with YouTube notifications, and it really felt good to see all the feedback, and everybody seems really, I don't know, it's all really positive, so that made me feel really good, and I appreciate it. It motivates me so much to keep doing videos. So thank you guys so much, and I will see you in the next video. Talk to you guys soon. Peace out.